Hello and welcome to the Road Trip Sports Podcast. My name is Harrison Crook and I'm joined today by my co-host, Oliver Gilmour. Ollie, how you doing?
I'm good, Harrison. I'm excited to get into today's episode. We're traveling across the Golden Gate Bridge to San Francisco.
That's a lovely bridge to travel over. It's actually a city we've both been to. It's the first city that we're going to talk about in this series that we've both been to. So it's going to be very exciting to compare our experiences, to compare all the little details that we saw. And it'll be exciting to hear about your recent trip to San Francisco to watch some Warriors games.
Yeah, I traveled to San Francisco in December of 2021. So just a couple of months ago, we went and saw 2 Golden State Warriors games. Did a lot of the touristy sort of stuff there as well, but overall got a little bit of a sports experience, so I'll be able to share that with you guys today.
Yeah, perfect. Now, if you like what you hear, you can follow us on all the socials at Road Trip Sports Pod. We've got lots of content coming up on our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok pages. Specifically the TikTok. There's been lots of videos going up lately, getting lots of attention. So make sure you follow us on all of those socials to get all of our content. Now, we're also on YouTube. You can find us by searching Road Trip Sports Podcast. All of our videos go up there, as well as our full podcast episodes. If you've got any inquiries, if you'd like to reach out, send us any details about your trips, send us any voice recordings maybe of stories you'd like to tell, or if you've just got any fan questions for us, you can reach out to us. roadtripsportspodcast@gmail.com is where you can reach out to us for any emails and the like. Now, Ollie, would you like to tell us all about San Francisco?
Yeah, so just some fast facts and information for you guys as usual. San Francisco is located in the state of California and is the 17th largest city in the United States. When I think of San Fran, a number of landmarks come to mind, including the Golden Gate Bridge, their cable cars, former Alcatraz Federal Prison, and the Fisherman's Wharf, which has some of the very best seafood in the world on offer. Have you tried San Fran seafood at all?
Yeah, I remember when I was on Fisherman's Wharf, we just went to the... Do you remember the big sports store on Fisherman's Wharf?
I do, yeah. I've been there.
Huge, famous sports store. So we'd just been to there and we went to a little like cafe sort of shack sort of thing, and had one of their crab bisques inside the big buns, big bread
the big
buns.
dampers. I'm not a big seafood fan, but it's just one of those things. You've just got to try it.
You have to do it when you're there, for sure.
It's some of the best seafood in the world. So, and whilst I could talk about San Fran's attractions all day, I could sit here and talk to you guys about it all day. We are here to talk about sports. And San Fran is home to a number of teams, including most notably the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, San Francisco Giants in the MLB, and San Francisco 49ers in the NFL.
All great teams with a lot of storied history with those teams, yeah.
Lots of history, lots of world championships. So we'll have a direct focus on those teams and hopefully give you a little bit of an insight into what the city is all about.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we're only going to focus on San Francisco this week. We're not going to talk about Oakland. We're not going to talk about San Jose either. We're probably going to save those for future episodes. Maybe even do a deep dive into the death of the Raiders being in Oakland and what led to that sort of demise, which would be a great idea for a podcast. So if you like that idea, make sure you reach out to us. Let us know, and we can address that in a future episode. But so we're going to leave Oakland and San Jose out of it for today. And we're just going to focus on the Golden State Warriors, San Francisco Giants, San Francisco 49ers. Now, first of all, for those who don't know, Ollie is the biggest Golden State Warriors fan I know. It rivals very closely to his love for the Green Bay Packers. So, Ollie, how did you become a Golden State Warriors fan? And are you a bandwagoner?
I'm not a bandwagoner. A lot of people, when I tell them I go for the Golden State Warriors, they sort of looking at me like, oh, you haven't been supporting them for that long. Jumping on the Steph Curry, the Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson bandwagon after they've won all the championships. But I actually went and saw the Golden State Warriors in 2008. That was a really good experience. We traveled out to Oracle Arena in Oakland. They've since moved, which we'll talk about just in a moment. But yeah, that was a super cool experience, and that was when I first became a Warriors fan.
Yeah, so who were the star players there in 2008?
Well, look, that's the thing. They didn't have a lot of star players. Monte Ellis was there. Steph Curry had just been drafted. He was drafted in 2007, and I'm sure we'll get into him more today. But they had Monte Ellis, Andreas Biedrins was their big man, and you're thinking who? And probably right. But yeah, they had a lot of role players. Pretty average sort of team, but yeah, I went and saw them play rather against the Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe Bryant. Kobe actually hit a game winner in overtime to beat the Warriors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty cool to see, even though you're not a Lakers fan, pretty cool to see a Kobe Bryant game winner, hey?
Yeah, now since we've lost Kobe, it's always good to, have a Kobe Bryant memory, and that's mine, so super fortunate there.
For sure.
Yeah, the second game we went and saw was the following night. Usually when you travel and you watch basketball games, you try and line up those back-to-backs. But we saw the Warriors again play the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets featured Yao Ming and Tracy McGrady, and he was actually the guy that hit another game winner, this time in double overtime to beat the Warriors.
You sure got your money's worth. 2 overtime games.
Yeah, for sure. And that probably should have been enough to turn me off the Warriors, 2 gruesome losses. They weren't a playoff team at that point. But yeah, look, I kept on ship, and they've won me some championships since then, so glad that I did.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a great ride for the Warriors fans that have stuck around for the whole ride. There are a lot of Warriors fans, though, who have come to the team recently. What are your thoughts on bandwagoning as a whole, and specifically like bandwagons to your team? Do you resent those sorts of people? Are you just happy that the Warriors are a national team and they're talked about a lot? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's difficult. I suppose it depends on what fan it is. If you're jumping from another team and saying, I now support the Warriors, I've always supported the Warriors, I'm not a fan. But I've noticed that a lot of young kids have started supporting the Warriors. And can you really fault them when you've got Steph Curry, who's one of the most entertaining players of all time to watch? They've got Klay Thompson. They had Kevin Durant at one point, and they're just a great organization with a great coach, and they're easily the most watchable team in the NBA, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And Steph Curry's that sort of, I don't want to use the word icon because that's coming up, but he is that sort of icon for the kids. He's the one that they all look up to. LeBron's such a physical specimen. It's hard to picture yourself as a LeBron, but anyone could be Steph Curry. It's sort of like the Spider-Man of the NBA. Anyone could be Steph Curry. Anyone could see themselves in that mold. Obviously, you'd have to practice for years and years to not even be ever as close to Steph Curry, but he's so relatable and everyone wants to be like Steph Curry because he is someone that you can see yourself in that mold. Yeah,
that's it. And you can't hate NBA fans and basketball fans for wanting to support the Warriors and wanting to watch Steph Curry play. I mean, it's just fantastic in person and on TV. He's had so many memorable moments. He's just been a great ambassador for the game. I think he's changed the game. We see kids
sure.
now pulling up from 30, 35 feet. Like, that never happened. Three-pointers weren't even a thing 20 years ago. Now it's taken over the game completely.
Yeah, for sure. And you can definitely credit that to Steph Curry. Now, you recently went to San Francisco in December, like we mentioned before. Do you want to tell us about that trip? You saw 2 Warriors games, I remember.
Yeah, so once again, that back-to-back, I went and saw the Suns, the Warriors play the Suns, which was a nationally televised game. That one was really good. They ended up getting the win. And then they lost against the Spurs the following night, a bit flat usually on that back-to-back, and they just weren't able to get the job done.
Well, it was the big G up to get that win against the Suns. The Suns coming off their NBA Finals appearance. It was probably it was a big win. I remember watching the game because I knew you were there, and it was a really big win for them, and they got up to get that win. So probably coming down on the downslide against the Spurs caught him at the right time.
Yeah, well, that game, the Suns game, they'd actually played him 2 nights before, and they lost that game. Curry was flat, the team was flat, and you just knew that they were going to come out a different team on their home court.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned that you went back-to-back games. Is that something you'd recommend to people when they do go to see a game in the States? Would you recommend trying to tee up one of those back-to-back game experiences?
Yeah, especially if you're a fan or a supporter of a particular team, you've got to always try and line up those back-to-backs. So they may play on a Saturday. They generally always play on a night, during the night. So catch that Saturday game, then catch the Sunday night game or the Sunday Arvo game. But the best thing about that is it gives you, say you arrive on the Friday night, you've got all Saturday to sort of do all that touristy stuff. You watch the game, you wake up, do all the touristy stuff again on the Sunday, and then you can still catch the game.
It'd also be good as well. I know you were stressing prior to your trip about wanting to see both of your teams win. You want to see the Packers win, and you wanted to see the Warriors win. Stacking those back-to-back games probably allows you a bit more of a chance, because they're also not going to put two unbeatable teams back-to-back on you most times. So you might be able to catch a game, a really highly broadcast game against a really top team, and then you might be able to catch a game against a not so much team that you might get more of a chance to win at.
Yeah, and another thing is that usually, as you mentioned, you don't get two huge opponents. And the best thing about that is that tickets can sometimes be cheaper on one night compared to the other. Like the Spurs tickets were a lot cheaper as compared to the Suns tickets being that nationally televised game.
So I remember talking to you, did you get, what sort of tickets did you get? Is there a strategy of lining up which ones to fork out for and which ones to sort of hang back on?
Well, I suppose that's sort of your own opinion and what you'd rather. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Like, you can spend more money on the Suns game, arguably the better game, or you can spend more money on the Spurs game and get a much better seat. It's sort of like a value for money thing. Whatever you think's the best, but I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, there's not a bad seat in the house at most basketball games, hey?
Yeah, no, especially the new Chase Center, as we mentioned before. I think we mentioned it before.
I think we did. Now, how was the Chase Center?
Yeah, the Chase Center was awesome.
When did it open?
It opened about 2 years ago. Might have been 3 years ago now. See, look, it's one of those things where with COVID, it's sort of like taken away your experience at the stadium, sort of thing. Like,
it's the same with SoFi in LA being the first season back there. Yeah, you're right. You don't realize how long they've been around. Like, it still feels like some of these stadiums, it's their first season because they actually can get fans back for the first time.
Yeah, that's it. And one of the things I loved about the Chase Center was One Warriors Way. So that was the address.
Yep.
But the best thing about it was we were sort of just staying in the city as most people do. And it's sort of towards the wharf area. And you jump on a train or a tram or whatever. You could even jump on a cable car if you went early enough. But you jump on that and you travel a couple of stops and it's legit Chase Center. There it is. And you're there, sort of thing. So really, really good experience. I love San Francisco as a city, but a great sporting city as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, is there anything else you'd like to talk about the Golden State Warriors experience?
No, I don't think so. I think the Warriors are a great organisation. I don't know if they do too many tours there as such, but I would recommend doing that or anything
Is there
Warriors
any fan
related.
experiences or anything outside the stadium, or?
Yeah, they've got a lot of fan experiences. They sort of have like different nights. So it might be like Mexican night or bobblehead night, and they'll always give you something sort of as a bit of an incentive for rocking up to the game, which is really cool. So
Yeah, awesome for the kids as well as something to take home and put on the shelf at home.
yeah, and I believe you've been to San Francisco before. So did you want to tell us a little bit about your trip?
Yeah, so I've been to San Francisco quite a few times now. I've been with my family, I think twice, and I also went on a trip with school on Good Day USA. That's actually where I met my partner. Shout out to Sarah. But yeah, so I've been on quite a few trips to San Francisco, and on the most recent one, I went with my family. We actually went there the year of Super Bowl 50, when Super Bowl 50 was held at Levi Stadium.
Oh, wow.
And it had just opened, so it was very hard to get in to do any sorts of tours or anything, see any games, because it was pretty much just full steam ahead for the Super Bowl. But we did actually get to go visit the outside of the stadium and get some pictures there at Levi Stadium. It's actually quite out of the way of
Santa Clara.
It's almost San Jose. Like it's about 45 minutes out of San Francisco, so it's a bit of a drive to get to. So if you're going to see a Niners game, probably wouldn't recommend being in San Francisco itself, because it is going to be so packed and congested, all the traffic getting back to San Francisco. Maybe try and stay in a San Jose or something, although then again, the hotel prices might be fairly high and there people might be trying to do that as well. But it was really cool stadium, modern facilities. Incredible from the outset. It fits so much into that the culture of that area, the like Silicon Valley sort of tech hub sort of culture, and it's a really cool stadium to see.
Yeah, well, I note that the new Warriors Chase Center and the Giants Stadium are right near the water. Is Levi's sort of like that as well, or is it, as you mentioned, a bit more industrial sort of thing?
It's definitely a bit more industrial. There's lots of the tech hubs sort of around the area, so it's not quite as on the water and picturesque in terms of location, but the stadium itself is looking fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've always enjoyed San Francisco, so this is my message. Check it out.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great city. It's a great place to watch a sports game. I visited as well the San Francisco Giants Stadium. Visited that a couple of times actually now, and went in the team store as well for that. So it was the worst time for a sports visit because it was off season for baseball. Football was just ramping up into playoffs. So it wasn't the best time to see any games when I went to San Francisco, but still tried to experience as much sport as possible. Like I said, definitely recommend the sports store on Fisherman's Wharf. Fantastic. No matter what team you're a fan of, there's stuff for everyone. That's definitely a must-see for a sports fan.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Great. So I think that's just about it for talking about San Fran itself. Now, here is where it's going to get tough because we're going to talk about the icon of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And we have had some discussions, pre-show meetings. We have tried to nail it down all week of who the icon is. And I still don't think we have an answer between us. So we might have to hash it out today.
Yeah, I think this is one of the hardest weeks that I can think of, even looking towards some cities that we may talk about in the future. Such iconic sportsmen from both codes of NFL, NBA, even MLB as well. So
yeah, I think because we've got 4 finalists, but we've got 2 we're going to debate today. You could make an argument for any of these 4 to be the icon of San Francisco. But let's get into it now. So our finalists who we're not going to debate today, we've got 2 who are shortlisted as our finalists, if you will. First of all, we've got Jerry Rice, the prolific wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Niners. He also won a Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 23. He was a 2-time NFL Offensive Player of the Year, 10-time first-team All-Pro. He was the best wide receiver in the league for so many of those years. Incredible talent. Some people call him the greatest wide receiver of all time. Some people call him the greatest football player of all time. Have you got any thoughts on Jerry Rice?
I'm just a bit disappointed I didn't get to watch him play. That's all I'm going to say. 16 seasons for the San Francisco 49ers, and that's what delivers to that icon status. When you're able to spend most of your career at one team, he's inducted into the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, and he is that icon of San Francisco and is that icon of the San Francisco 49ers. And he's tough not to get the win here, being that receiving yards leader so many times, dominating the competition. Who could stop him, really? That combination of speed and power. And you even see him running routes today. Like, you watch him on TV sometimes. And
he can still play. He can still play.
Chuck him
Get
out
him out
there. Yeah, that's it.
So do you want to talk about our next shortlisted finalist, if you will?
Yeah, so we have a member of the San Francisco Giants, an MLB superstar in Barry Bonds. Mm-hmm. Now, he's arguably one of the greatest baseball players of all time, but had some controversy in which we'll get into in a second. But he's a 14-time All-Star. He's a 7-time National League MVP. He won
Insane.
8 Gold Glove Awards and had 762 career home runs. And the most home runs in a single season.
So both of those are still the record in baseball, with the 762 career home runs, 73 home runs in a single season, and they're records that are going to be so hard to touch in the future. It's going to be really hard for someone to even try to match those records. Now, a lot of people say the reason he did get those records was due to the scandals. Now, did you want to talk about the scandals at all?
Yeah, maybe we should just touch on it briefly. So, I think it was they sort of alleged that around the 2000s, 2000 to 2003 to sort of 2007, he was sort of charged as such with the alleged use of steroids, which was actually a big thing amongst athletes, among all sports in San Francisco at the time. I believe that one of San Francisco's trainers was giving out supplements to different athletes. And I wouldn't say it's like the Essendon Bombers situation that we saw in Australia, but yeah, just it's put a real big, it's a if on his career that he didn't really need, and that's what's contributed to his snubbing of the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, definitely. And so what's your opinion on steroids and whether they can deny someone the ability to be in the Hall of Fame?
I think it's really difficult. I really struggle to sort of argue either way. On one hand, you've got, this guy, he arguably wouldn't have been as good if he took these steroids, if he had these supplements. And then on the other hand, he was a great player. How much contribution do the steroids actually have to how he played?
It's an interesting conversation to have because baseball's a very technical game. It's one of those games where you need to hit the ball in the right spot. It's not just about how strong you are. So he's very talented in that respect. But the strength that he could pull off to get the ball over the fence so many times where it would fall short for other players, that's probably what contributed a lot to that home run totals. Now, a lot of other people at the time were doing steroids. They were rampant through baseball in that period. So it's very much a conversation of, well, if everyone's doing it, does he deserve to be snubbed when he succeeded far above everyone else despite... Because we always talk about steroids as the level playing field. It's making an uneven playing field. But if everyone's doing steroids, is it then uneven? When comparing in the professional leagues, yes, it's still a bad thing. Yes, we should still outlaw them in the game. But when comparing his performance to his peers, I think it still deserves merit. And I think the biggest thing that I consider when I'm talking about Hall of Fame and whenever I'm having a discussion about if a certain player should make the Hall of Fame, it's something I've heard around a few people mention before, but can you tell the story of the sport without that player? And I think that always should dictate the Hall of Fame because the Hall of Fame is famous. The fame is famous. It should be the people who have influenced the game the most, not necessarily the players who are the best. Obviously, the players who are the best will rise to the cream, but it's the players you can't tell the story of the game without them. And for him having the career home run record and the single season home run record, you cannot tell the story of Major League Baseball. You cannot tell the story of professional baseball in the United States without Barry Bonds. I think he should have been in the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
well, so he's lost his eligibility now for the Hall of Fame. He didn't get that 75% of votes required. He only got that 66. But despite that, there's still a small chance that he'll be eligible for induction. Basically, how that works is it's a thing called a Veterans Committee, and 16 members are on that, and that he needs 12 votes for induction. Yeah. So it's sort of a last hurrah, and you'll see that in December of this year, December of 2022. So the story might not be over yet, but I'm sure that it'll be more of a conversation come that time.
For sure. Now we get into our discussion. There's two players who we need to talk about. I think anyone who knows San Francisco football and basketball will know who we're talking about.
They will indeed. And we touched on Stephen Curry as an icon previously, but he is one of our finalists. Son of Hornets legend Del Curry. He was drafted 7th overall in 2007 by the Golden State Warriors. Now, this was actually pretty controversial at the time, as the Minnesota Timberwolves selected Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn 5th and 6th before Steph Curry. They needed a point guard, and they picked wrong, not once, but twice.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Yes.
You always talk about those teams that miss on the generational talent, especially when they're picking the same position. One that comes to mind recently is Mitch Trubisky, with Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes coming after him. It's a big whiff, isn't it?
It is, and especially when it's a what if when it happens twice. You know, you sort of could make the argument that Steph Curry could have been the home run and Johnny Flynn was the safe pick, but they went for Ricky Rubio, that Spanish player overseas that they were a bit unsure about, and then Johnny Flynn is the safe pick. But Stephen Curry, it wasn't like he wasn't putting up numbers playing for Davidson, that small school. I actually remember a moment where they double-teamed him the entire game. And the coach after the game said, look, you guys lost. And he said, yeah, but Stephen Curry didn't score a point. They literally double-teamed him for the entire game. And this
They just didn't want to get embarrassed.
That's it. And this probably signaled what would happen for the rest of his career, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. So Steph Curry, 3-time NBA champion, 2-time most valuable player, including the amazing, unanimously voted MVP, the first time in NBA history and the only time in NBA history.
Yeah, look, that was a fantastic season. The Warriors finished with a record of 73-9 to break that Bulls record. He was just fantastic. But yeah, they couldn't get the job done against the Cavaliers this year. I'm probably going to leave it at that because I'm a bit salty about that, blowing that 3-1 lead.
Understatement of the year.
The memes still haunt me.
3-1.
But yeah,
you had him 3-1. You're on the ropes. I don't want to dig up the past
what do
too
you
much,
say?
But oh boy, it was very entertaining as a bipartisan fan to watch that incredible comeback and all the moments in Game 7.
Well, I can touch on it briefly. And this is me being salty, all right? Look, I acknowledge I'm probably salty, but Draymond Green doesn't get that technical foul. The Warriors win. Andrew Bogut doesn't get injured. The Warriors probably win. There's a lot of what-ifs. Scott Foster, I'm not going to say he rigged that series, but, I think they wanted the Cavs to win. But yeah, no, all biased and me being salty apart.
Does tinfoil hat, is it too tight around your head or what's going on with that?
There must be a lot of people with those tinfoil hats that agree with me because I see a lot of conspiracies about that final series, let me tell you.
I would love to hear all these conspiracies at Road Trip Sports Pod. Find us on all the socials. I want to hear all about it and I want to have a good laugh. So send them right my way. I'll respond to every single one of them.
Yeah, so touching on from more of Steph Curry's achievements as a basketball player for the Warriors, he's an 8-time NBA All-Star. He actually won his first ever NBA All-Star Game MVP, the Kobe Bryant Trophy, which was actually happened today, a fair few hours ago now, but wasn't that huge. 16 three-pointers in one game.
Incredible.
How do you stop it?
You don't.
You don't.
You don't. He's proven time and time again. You put whatever obstacle in his way, he's just going to drain them. Doesn't matter how far back he is. If he's at the logo, if he's at halfway, he's going to drain these shots. He's incredible. It's something that we've never seen before, and I don't know if we'll see again.
I think there's an unmatched confidence as well to be able to pull up from 35 feet and to turn to someone and look them straight in the eyes before the ball goes in the hoop. And every time he does it, he must have like a sixth sense. Like every time he does it, he doesn't miss. Like he may do it a couple of times where he misses, but majority of the time he just turns, stares him in the eye, and it just goes in.
He's just, when he gets hot, when he gets that streak going, there's no stopping him. He is untouchable. Now he's a four-time All-NBA first team, 2-time All-NBA second team, All-NBA third team, 2-time scoring champion, steals leader. He's in the 50-40.
Just keep going on, I guess, mate. Look,
how big is so? In case, just inner workings, Ollie's written all the stats for these.
You know
what? Are we going to run out of paper soon?
I wanted Harrison to read out every single one of these.
2-time NBA 3-point contest champion, all-rookie team, all-rookie first team. He's on the 75th anniversary team. Is there anything you've left off?
I think I could find
more. Did you get his like little league trophies in there or?
Look, mate, I think I could find more. We could go back to his college days, but nonetheless,
incredible.
Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time. I'm calling it right now. I think there was some debate before he broke that all-time NBA career three-pointers record as to whether it was Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, or Steph Curry. But the fact that he's broken that record in 500 less games than those guys is just ridiculous.
It's unmatched. So, Steph Curry, it's a big list, but this is a heavyweight fight, and I've got my Mike Tyson in my corner. I've got the legendary, the icon, Joe Montana. Joe Cool. Joe Montana, for those who don't know, former San Francisco 49ers quarterback in the 80s. Before Tom Brady won all his recent Super Bowls, Joe Montana was the greatest quarterback of all time. There is still the argument to be made. It's starting to slim. The more Super Bowls Brady won, the more that argument started to wane. But he's a 4-time Super Bowl champion. He's a 3-time Super Bowl MVP. A 2-time most valuable player in the NFL. Offensive player of the year. Comeback player of the year. 3-time first team All-Pro. And that's in an era with so many good quarterbacks. They're Elways, Marinos, Boomer Esiason. They had Jim Kelly was around then. So many good quarterbacks. And this guy won every single award you could put in front of him. He was an icon for San Francisco.
Do you know what's the icing on the cake for me? Is the fact that he was picked in the 3rd round. And the end of the 3rd round at that. Like, to be picked in the 3rd round and to think you're going to get arguably one of the greatest, I think he's top 2 greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time. Look, I just think home run hit, one of the greatest players of all time. And look, he was able to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And usually that says enough about a guy, but he had so many individual moments.
Oh my goodness. Joe Montana is the king, and I think anything you say about Joe Montana, you can say about Tom Brady, but Joe Montana is the king of the 2-minute drill. He's the king of getting his team from one end of the field all the way to the other, leaving no time for the other team, and scoring that icy cold touchdown. Incredible. And we're going to get into moments soon, but the catch, the drive, there's a reason those moments, you don't have to explain them. You just say the catch, the drive, and you know exactly what we're talking about. You can picture it in your mind of that man surgically pulling apart defenses. He didn't just throw bombs. There was the drive. He did not get a 3rd down on that drive. He went down the field in a Super Bowl, ice cold, scored the game winner, didn't even let him get to 3rd down. This man is the icon of San Francisco.
Look, it's a very hard case to be made for both guys. I think to Joe Montana's credit, he was just, as you mentioned, always able to get it done in the clutch. One of my favorite moments of Joe Montana is when he beat your Dolphins.
Yeah, we're going to get into that talk. I still need a couple of minutes to get my thoughts together for that one. We're going to get into that talk when we talk about moments. But we're going to announce the winner and the moments shortly, but I'm going to play dirty.
Yeah?
The Golden State Warriors have only just moved from Oakland to San Francisco. So you can only count the last 3 years of Steph Curry.
Can you?
Joe Montana is the icon of San Francisco.
See, the thing about...
Got him.
But the thing about the Golden State Warriors, though, to counter that, is that it's the whole... It's San Francisco, it's Oakland, it's San Jose, it's that whole Bay Area. And that is why you can argue that Steph Curry's had such a greater influence on such a larger area. The San Francisco 49ers challenging the Oakland Raiders. Oakland weren't a fan of Joe Montana. In fact, they probably actually hated him. They didn't want to see him succeed.
Yeah.
But, you've got that support for Steph Curry from Oakland and so many surrounding areas. But look, they're different sports. And I think both top 5 of their sports. And look, Joe Montana, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I think probably doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, I think it's probably the hardest icon chat we're going to have because most cities there's good players in every sport, but there's like a clear, this guy is it. This is probably going to be the hardest chat we'll have because they're so ingrained in their team's culture that it's hard to separate the player from the team. The greatest errors of both of these teams have been led by these players. They're leaders in the locker room. They're icons of the sport. They're the people. For so long, everyone wanted to be Joe Montana. Everyone right now wants to be Steph Curry. When we say icon, we sometimes throw it around too much, but these guys are true icons, not just of San Francisco, but of the sport. So I think either way we go, we're going to annoy some people. We may get it wrong in your eyes, but I think because we've had such a big discussion, we're going to leave it down to the fans this week.
Yeah, we're going to have to. I think even when we're talking about this, you sort of even may even hear us just sort of not stumbling on our words, but we're really trying to think of things to say about these guys, because nothing that we can say can project them as to how big of an influence they had on San Francisco, the surrounding areas, but even their own sport. Steph Curry, the game of basketball, Joe Montana, that 2-minute drill, just iconic.
And I think if you're not, especially Joe Montana, someone who is so, he's now a bit older now. People coming through may not be as aware. Make sure you check out. So our moments we're going to talk about soon will be up on our TikTok. We're going to post both of them this week because they've both had such a big impact. We're going to post both of them. Make sure you check out those moments videos, because that sort of gives you a big picture of the status that they hold in San Francisco. Now, the winner of the poll. And I don't know if this speaks to a recency bias or not.
I think it does.
But the winner of the poll, 67% Steph Curry, 33% Joe Montana, 0% for other.
Yeah, I think we've hit the nail on the head with our finalists this week then. I think this is our first icon one we haven't had that other. So maybe everyone's sold on Curry v Montana.
I think so. So, Oli, being the Steph Curry fan, being the Golden State Warriors fan, do you want to take us through the top 5 most iconic Steph Curry moments? Take it away.
I envision this will be like choosing my favourite child. But, yeah, look, my top 5 moments. We'll start off with number 5. 12 threes in a game, and his game winner against the Thunder in overtime. So he pulls up from half court, hits that, wins the game. Absolutely huge.
Yeah,
number
incredible.
4. Number 4 now is when he won his first MVP in 2015. Now, it's sort of hard to incorporate this into individual moments, but he had such a good year that year, bringing the Warriors their first championship, sort of putting them on the map, making the Warriors and Golden State a destination for free agents, really.
Especially winning an MVP in an era where there were such dominant players winning those MVP awards. LeBron was still around, and some people can argue that he's the MVP every year he plays. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook. There's so many great players. For Steph Curry to stand out among the rest that year was a testament to how great a year he truly had.
Yeah, so my number 3 most iconic Steph Curry moment actually happened this year, is when he broke the record for the most threes by a player in NBA history. And as I said earlier, 500 games less than anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Unreal. You talk about greatest shooters, and there's guys who come close, but I don't think anyone can top Steph Curry anymore. He's the greatest shooter of all time.
Yeah, and once again, we touched on it a bit earlier, but my number 2 moment was Steph Curry's first ever, Steph Curry's MVP, but the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history. Ridiculous, huge. What else can you say about it? Absolutely iconic.
And we were having chat about this before the pod. It's a real testament to how truly dominant he was that year. There was no touching him. He was pulling up from everywhere in the court. And you just know every time you turned on a Warriors game, Steph Curry was going to drop 30 points, a billion three-pointers. You knew he was going to take over a game every time you turned on the television.
Yeah, on insane efficiency too. That 50% field goal, 40% three, and 90% free throw. That illustrious 50-40-90 club. So ridiculous there. So my top moment, once again, hard to choose. But as a Warriors fan, it was when Steph Curry brought the first title to Golden State for many, many, many years. That was in 2016, and that was capped off by beating LeBron James and the Cavs.
Huge. First of the quadrilogy. 4 straight, wasn't it?
That's right, yes. So just amazing stuff from Stephen Curry and the Warriors there.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we'll get into Joe Montana's moments now. So the number 5 moment was Montana's first Super Bowl win versus the Bengals. Joe Montana led them to that win. In the 4th moment was another Super Bowl win. I'll give you a hint. There's going to be a lot of them in this list. The 4th moment was the 55-10 win over John Elway and the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 24 to beat a team like the Denver Broncos led by John Elway 55-10.
Let's just rub it in.
That's incredible.
You think you're one of the best quarterbacks of all time, John Elway? No, sir.
Number 3 moment was the Marino-Montana duel in Super Bowl 19. Now, unfortunately, as a sad Dolphins fan, the only time Marino would make the Super Bowl, and it was an incredible game. Montana did get the best of the Dolphins and Marino that day, taking out Super Bowl 19. Number 2, mentioned it before, the catch. NFC Championship game. Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, the 2 icons of that era, arguably the 2 greatest NFC teams of all time. Sorry to not mention your Packers there, but 14 play, 83-yard drive in the final moments of that game hits Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone in the NFC Championship game, and that place went wild. It was in the old Candlestick Park. That place went crazy.
Yeah, what else can I say? It's arguably the greatest and most memorable moment in NFL history. That huge drive, and it sort of represented the end of the Cowboys' domination in the NFC since the conference's inception in 1970.
Yeah, for sure. And the number 1 moment, Joe Cool, the drive against the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl. Lined up under center with 3 minutes and 4 seconds left. They were on their own 8-yard line. He orchestrated absolutely brilliant drive. Only 1/3 down on the drive, which means he cut them apart. They knew what was coming. They knew the pass was coming, and he still cut them apart. He went 8 for 9 for it was 97 yards and a touchdown on that drive. Absolutely incredible. And it ended with a completion to John Taylor in the end zone for a 20-16 lead. That was final. That was the win. What an incredible game. What an incredible drive by the master of the 2-minute drill. Now, you may have seen the final moments of the drive in our video on our TikToks, which is our teams to have never won a Super Bowl. Unfortunately for the Bengals, they lined up against the 49ers too many times in the 80s and couldn't get it done. And unfortunately couldn't get it done in the recent Super Bowl. This is our first podcast we've recorded post-Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the Bengals couldn't get it done again. They dropped to 0-3 in Super Bowls. Thought I'd just mention that quietly on the side. But yeah, Joe Montana, absolutely incredible player, and 4 Super Bowls and an NFC Championship make up his top 5 moments. He got it done when it counted.
Yeah, as you said, whenever you've got moments named after you or the catch, the drive, it's just insane. And for people to be able to recognize and to know what you're talking about when you say those moments or you say those words, it's just huge. And that just adds to his icon status with the San Francisco 49ers.
For sure. Well, we're going to quickly get into our mailbag. We're running low on time, so we're going to get straight into it. First question was from Joe from Newcastle. How far are the Warriors from winning a championship, and will it be this year?
I think there's certainly a possibility. And I think the reason how I know this, and I think the reason why I think the Warriors as an organization know this is because they didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. They're an aggressive team. If they think they've got the tools to win, or if they don't think they've got the tools to win, rather, they'll go out and get a guy, go out and get that center. There was a lot of teams were selling this year. A lot of teams are also buying, but they just didn't need any pieces, according to Bob Myers, and he's one of the best GMs in the NBA. So I trust him. I think they've got the pieces. They've got a couple of guys that are coming back from injury. Draymond Green's missed some time this year, and they've really suffered because of that. But when they had a full team, They're one of the league's best, and I think they're pretty close, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. I think they're one of that top teams. One of the teams likely to be in consideration towards the end. Now, we've got Jack from Cameron Park. What's your favourite memory as a Warriors fan?
So, I've touched on the 5 moments earlier in the championships and all that sort of stuff, but one moment that I haven't mentioned is Klay Thompson's 37 points in a quarter. Absolutely huge. That's the record for most points in a quarter. Did it against the Kings and just drilled 3 after 3 after 3 after 3. And you thought Steph Curry's performance was good today in the All-Star game? Go back and check that one out.
Yeah, insane. Klay Thompson is very underrated, playing on the same team as Steph Curry. He's also one of the greatest shooters of all time, and to get those two players on the same team has been proven to be very dangerous for opposition teams. Now, we've got one more question before we finish up today. It's Daz from CM. Should Nick Bosa have gotten any votes for Comeback Player of the Year?
My answer is yes. Joey Burrow got 28 votes. Dak Prescott got 21. I think that award and that head nod to him for sort of coming back from that gruesome leg injury, I think they sort of had in mind that he was a candidate for it. I think the award was nearly given to him before the season even started, but just because Joe Burrow had such a great year, I think he deserved it in the end.
Yeah, I think it's hard because the Comeback Player of the Year is such a narrative-driven award. There's no criteria for it. Like, MVP is the best player. Offensive Player of the Year is the best offensive player. Comeback Player of the Year, it can be anything from someone being injured to someone just being not as good and being better the next year. So it's hard to determine what makes a Comeback Player of the Year. And I think there wasn't the narrative there for Nick Bosa.
I agree.
And while he got all those sacks, he wasn't being talked about enough to get those votes. Did he play well enough to get those votes? Probably.
Yeah.
Did he have the narrative associated? Did he have the story? There wasn't the story there in such a story-driven award. I don't think he was ever going to get any votes.
Yeah,
he would have had to have done a lot to get votes for it.
Yeah, I mean, he had those 15.5 sacks and led the league in tackles. And you could argue that, you know, as a QB, you're primarily dependent upon your arm. And we even saw Phillip Rivers play with a completely torn ACL. And that's not to diminish the year that Burrow or Dak had. But it goes to show that if you're not a running quarterback, you can play the position without too much stress on your knees or on your legs. Yeah,
it is hard though, because obviously ACL injury is still very impactful. But I think Burrow is definitely a very well-deserving recipient.
Yeah, nothing to take away from Burrow. I think, as you mentioned before, it's a narrative thing. I'm not going to say Burrow shouldn't have won the award, but should Bosa have gotten a vote? Yes, I think he should have.
All right, well, that's it for the podcast today. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a great episode. I've really loved talking about San Francisco, talking about our shared experiences there, being a place we've both visited. If you've enjoyed the podcast, make sure to let us know on all the socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Road Trip Sports Pod. You can find us on YouTube. Road Trip Sports Podcast is what you have to search there. You can any inquiries, like we mentioned at the start, any inquiries, voice recordings, stories you'd like to tell us. We'd love to get your stories on the podcast. We loved the segment we did last week with the Sydney, having people's thoughts on the Icon debate. So if you've got any thoughts when we post who our Icon finalists are on the socials, make sure to let us know, because we'd love to hear from you. It's going to be a great chat next week. We're going to stay in Australia again, and we're going to a city down south.
Yeah, we're travelling to Melbourne, and I'm super excited about this one because we're able to talk about AFL, NRL, Australian sports again. But as we talked about last week, we're able to sort of travel 2 hours or jump on a plane and head down to Melbourne to go and watch a game. So we've got plenty of experiences there.
It's going to be interesting as well, because one of the experiences we've actually been to together in Melbourne.
Yes.
I don't know how many people would agree that it is a sport, but it's close enough. They call it sports entertainment. We'll take it. We watched the wrestling at the MCG, so I'm sure we're going to talk about that next week. And if you remember from when we first tried to start the podcast, we had a bit of content about that. So we might see if we can get some of that old content back and revisit some little clips and snippets from that as a little bit of a fun segment. If you'd like to hear that, make sure to let us know and stay tuned for next week. Thank you very much. I've been Harrison Crook. This has been Oliver Gilmour. Thanks so much for listening.
See ya.